We'll start off again in appreciation for VIcom for the Convergence technology show that they put together. It's amazing when actually a very good dealer puts together an event that can span over 2 days and have all the different type of manufacturers here. So we're glad to be a part of that. And I know it's late in the afternoon. This is the last seminar presentation, and then you have to go fight the traffic. So I understand that. So I'll make sure we make good use of your time. My name is Jim Jensen. I'm with Panasonic directly, and I'm what they call a senior PSM, or partner sales manager, which means I deal with our authorized dealers such as VIcom and continue to grow their business. Along with me today is Raj Ladd, who's by the camera there, and he'll be assisting me as well. He's an engineer, I'm a sales guy, so what that means is if I lie, he'll raise his hand and say that's not true and correct me and give you all the technical stuff. So we'll go from there. We're going to talk about a couple different product categories. As you know, Panasonic makes a lot of different products, so we're just going to kind of go over some things, and then if we have time, we can dig a little bit deeper. But I want to cover all the different products. That's how many displays we currently make. And if you look at the slide up there, you'll see a check mark by each of the new products that we have recently introduced. And you can see all the new logos up on the screen. It's a lot of new product when it comes to displays. And with all those different products, you really have to break it down by what's the right application, not just all the specs and things of that nature. So I want to talk more about the applications and a little bit about the features and how that translates to the application that they're being used in. And when you talk about displays in particular, sometimes they're used in a room. And so it's indoor, and indoor could be quite dark. And so you don't need that bright of a display, quite frankly. But there's sometimes when it's indoors, and you know what? Indoors is pretty bright, so you need a brighter display. And then there's applications actually where you may need the display to be outside, and if it's outside in the elements, that brings in a whole new dynamic. So we'll talk about those type of displays as well. If you look throughout the convention today, you'll see that there's a lot of digital signage. VIcom went to great lengths to have some really nice digital signage, and we have digital signage displays. You can see them listed up there. I'm not going to read bullet point for bullet point, but do want to point out a couple things that make us unique. One is this particular series is rated for 24/7. Raj and I spend a lot of time in Washington, D.C., and there's a lot of government clients that have things running 24/7, and it's mission critical. It cannot go down. So if that's your particular application where it does run 24/7, this particular series would be of interest to you. You'll notice up there that it has a fanless design. Why is that important? If you've ever been in a conference room and you hear a buzz or you hear a fan, it drives you nuts. I do a lot of presenting, and you know what? If I'm talking and I hear this buzz, and it's bad for the audience and bad for the speaker. So having a fanless design is very important. The only difference really between these two series is the brightness. So the 60 series is actually, you'll see 700 nits, and then the other series is 450 nits. Again, when we hear of applications, we ask about the brightness of the room, because that would determine which would be the proper display given the lighting conditions of the room. And so that's why you see two different series here. They also have, both series have digital link, and we'll talk more about that. How many of you sat in other seminars throughout the past 2 days? Anyone? And you probably heard digital link mentioned a couple times. So some of you may be familiar with that, but this is a technology that has really revolutionized the industry, and we'll talk a little bit more about that so you understand the advantage of these particular displays. Our digital signage displays also have built-in speakers. A lot of people say, I need displays, but I would like some type of audio running without the need for additional speakers hung on the side or, just separate. So ours are built in. It's 10 watts per side, so enough to grab some attention from a digital signage standpoint. Also with digital signage is there to capture your attention because obviously they're trying to usually sell you something, right? There's some type of ad, maybe it's about instructions on a campus or something of that nature. So this particular series, I can do portrait or landscape. We're seeing a lot of them, depending on the dynamics of the room and where it's located, doing portrait, because that's not a normal style that everyone gets to see, so it grabs your attention a little bit more. These panels also are a true 1920 by 1080 native resolution. There's no convergence going on. It is actually a native resolution. The other thing, too, that you should be aware of that we really tout ourselves on is the 178-degree viewing angle. One of the things that if you are looking at digital signage and you're walking down, all of a sudden it captures your attention, but usually you're still walking, right? And so what happens is as you walk past that display, the viewing angle changes and you have trouble seeing what's on the actual display. Well, advertisers don't want that. They want you to be able to see that entire display the whole time. So when we go against competition, this is a very big selling feature for us. A 178-degree viewing angle means I can walk by it, start looking at it, keep going, and still see everything on that particular screen. So that's a really nice advantage that we have with our particular series. The other thing that you'll notice the sizes that I had there, we now make them in larger sizes as well, a 70-inch and an 80-inch. And what's really nice about these is there is a protective glass option. Often when you're putting digital signage in a particular facilities, you have different elements that can actually cause damage to the screen of a display. And that's not a very good thing. This isn't something you want to be replacing all the time by any means. So the protective glass option is very well welcomed. These are a little bit brighter. They're 700 nits, so they really can fit in most applications that we find out there. And the other big thing with these particular ones, how many of you will understand when I say they are ADA compliant? Do you know what I mean by that? Right, the American Disabilities Act has said, hey, they can only be so far off the wall. And so to have a 70 or 80 inch that's ADA compliant is really kind of nice because it allows you to stay within that law. With the 70 to 80 inch, I wish I had a slide to show you, but on the back, they've got built-in eye bolts as well, too. What's nice about the built-in eye bolts is I can hang them from ceilings without any additional hardware. They're fixated right onto the screen itself. So something that's unusual about our 70 and 80 inch. Now, the other thing, too, is we have options, and you'll see what I have listed here as slot 2.0. The screen itself comes with two HDMIs, but there are some applications where they say, you know what, I want a third HDMI. Or if they're routing what they call HDSDI or SDI, usually in broadcast facilities and other type of facilities, it has an HDSDI option. So if you're a real tech person, that's also known as 7292M. So just something very unusual about our 70 and 80 inches that are different from the competition. We know in digital signage too, there isn't always the need for a commercial display that's rated for 24/7. We hear about this a lot from churches, let's say, that usually it's during the weekend, maybe a little bit in the midweek, that they have their digital signage on, but not all week. So 24/7 is not necessary, i.e. I don't want to pay that much money for a 24/7 screen. There are those that will because of the longevity of the display. So we have an economy series for digital signage. You can see it's 42, 50, and 65 inches. But these are not rated 24/7. But what's nice about them is qualitative-wise, in terms of picture quality and everything else, nothing changes whatsoever. So this is a new lineup for us that we've been having a lot of success with. The other things engineering did that's really nice is that we can actually do a 5x5 video wall with this particular screen as well. So if you want to do some very creative digital signage in a 5x5 video wall, this would be the way to do it. They can be fixated whether in a portrait or landscape mode as well. Also, people often ask me, let me just back up real quick, what is the panel life? And this is our economy series. It's 50,000 hours is the panel life. And at the end of 50,000 hours, it's not like the panel goes dead, but you'd be at 50% brightness. So that's just something we often get asked, and I wanted to make sure I brought that to your attention. I mentioned video walls. How many of you have been by our booth? You all look familiar, so I think we saw you there. One of the big eye-catching things about our booth is the video wall that we have there. Video wall seems to be a market for many applications that people are gravitating towards. Everyone that comes to our booth says, wow. You know, and if you saw us setting it up, you'd say wow twice, because to move those things around was a good workout, to say the least, that Raj and I can testify. And by the way, we are looking for volunteers for teardown. So if you don't win the Blu-ray, we are more than welcome to help you out. But let's talk about video walls for just a moment to let you know what we offer. Again, you'll see with Panasonic, we typically have a couple of different series within that product category. And that's true, too, with our video walls. We have what we call the V5 series and then the V50 series. The difference, just like what I talked about with digital signage, really comes down to the brightness. 800 nits versus 500 nits. Depending on the application, the dynamics of the room, where they're being seen, when they'll be seen would determine, just how brightness of a display that I would need. And we'll talk a little bit more about this, but one of the other differences is one is anti-reflective and the other one's anti-glare. And so again, usually when you're doing a video wall, there's natural light coming in. And depending on that, what particular panel you choose would really determine how that light is either splattered off, as I say it, or scattered or diffused. So that's the differences between the two, and we'll talk about that. With our video walls, all of them are rated at 24/7. So there's really no reason to even turn them off. One of the things that if you were VIcom, this may impress you more than the actual customer themselves, but built into our video wall displays is all pre-calibration. One of the challenges when you put a video wall together is, even if you had a 2x2 that you'll see out in our display, is you want each one calibrated to match each other. If you've ever seen a very poor video wall being done, it's because one of the 4 displays was off. And that really defeats the purpose of having a nice video wall, because you're going to look at that video wall and you're going to be like, that one's off. There's something about that I'm not happy about. So usually installers, integrators, have to get third-party software to do all this calibration. With ours, it's built in. So VIcom people, just remember that, okay? So I want to make sure you're aware of that. So I did mention about anti-reflection and anti-glare, and this is really kind of important because everyone's got different dynamics within the room that they would be used. If it's anti-reflection, you can see how the light comes in and really just refracts it off there. Versus anti-glare, it scatters it. So one diffuses it, the other one scatters it. So your integrator, VIcom, when they look at the room, they'll know based on the dynamics of that room what would be the proper screen to use for a video wall based on that. So, and you can see the advantages and different disadvantage of that. Certainly the clarity and resolution is better on an anti-reflective screen. Okay? So just some things to consider as you may be looking at video walls. The other thing, how many went to InfoComm this year, just out of curiosity? Anyone go? Okay. I did. Worked 3 or 4 days. I felt like I was working 24/7. But we were showing this brand new panel, and it got a lot of attention. One of the reasons is because of the very super narrow bezel, much thinner than you saw up on my previous screens. The other thing, it was rated for 24/7, and it had the pre-calibration. And so those type of factors really went into people being attracted towards it. And we had this big video wall at InfoComm, and I forget if it was like a 5x5 But what we were doing, and a lot of people have video walls, but what we were doing, we were pulling out the one of the displays and slamming it back in. We'll pull out another one and slam it back in. And people are like, you shouldn't be doing that. You're going to goof it up. And we're like, no. One, it's pre-calibrated, so I don't have any issues there. The other thing is we were showing that we had a new wall mount. And the new wall mount was really giving people hope for video walls, because if you have a video wall in the lobby and someone bumps into it, touches it, and stuff like that, and it gets knocked out of alignment, that's a problem. But with our new mount, what it does is, say you're lining up two screens, you'll see here, these, you end up with a surface gap, but right here is what we have are magnets. And so what the magnet does is bring it together and lock it in place, so that if someone bumps into it, it's going to stay there because of the magnet. If someone needs to pull it out for servicing capability or some other reason, you can slap it back in, no issues, it'll line right up. So that's something very unique that we have. I just wanted to bring to your attention, I mentioned outdoor applications. There are a lot of digital signage applications, whether it's on campus, whether it's in a large corporate environment, and the screen needs to be outside. It could be maps or things of that nature. So Panasonic is really the only manufacturer that makes the entire outdoor display, from the display itself to the entire enclosure. Other people have to use third-party and things of that nature. And you can see listed here, I think I've got it listed there, there's different IP ratings for the two different outdoor displays. But I want to make sure you're aware of those, and we can always get you demos. You're in Virginia Beach, right? You get the afternoon thunderstorm during the summers and things of that nature. We're talking about how VIcom used to do their shows in August outside in the tent. Inevitably, right, was the thunderstorm. I wish we had, we could have got you some outdoor displays there. Oh, I'm always a salesman, sorry. Anyway, so let's talk a little about interactivity. If you went by our booth and you saw my interactive board on the side, you would see these funny stick people, right, that were drawn on there. That's Raj's handiwork. Should give him credit for that. But interactivity has become a big thing when it comes to display. And one of the neat things about our interactive displays is a couple of things. You'll see, again, there are different series for the interactive. There's 50 and 65 and 80 inch. They have the optional slot 2.0, just like I had mentioned on our digital signage. But here's some unique things about them. One is with our interactive displays, it is compatible whether it's Mac, PC, an iOS, Android device, it doesn't matter. In a lot of environments, everyone's bringing different devices. If I asked everyone to pull out their device, some would have the iPhone, some would have Android-based tablets of all sorts and stuff like that. Well, they're interactive displays, it doesn't matter one bit. And with our interactive displays, I could use it as a straight whiteboard. So often we walk into conference rooms and I see the old whiteboard just hanging on there, and you can see the marker still on there and things of that nature. And they've had it since 1970, and yet they'll have another display sitting by it, and it's like, why not combine the two? With our whiteboard, you actually have 4 points of touch. So in an educational setting, if you're bringing students up and you want them to draw different things and interact with each other, because teaching is all about interacting and keeping it engaging. So having 4 points of touch on the whiteboard allows you to bring people up. We were going to wheel ours in, we just didn't have enough time, but to show you how you can do that with the different colors and things of that nature. Now, if you're not using it as a whiteboard, you can bring in video, live video, you can bring in pictures, you can bring in PowerPoint, and you can walk up and start annotated right away. When you're not using it as a whiteboard and using it over live video, or again, PowerPoint, I actually now have 6 points of touch, which my understanding is there's really no one out there doing 6 points of touch. One of our very good customers is called the NFL. A lot of them use our video products and stuff like that, and they use our projectors. And we talked about interactive boards. They say, you know, coaches, when we go to review tapes and stuff like that, we're always doing type of drawings. And usually there's several coaches, several players. We need it to be interactive. And same with in the educational market, teachers say the more students that they can call up and draw simultaneously will keep it engaging for the students. So again, that's something that's very unique with our interactive boards. The other thing is that makes it very unique, and you can read them there, but it has an internal memory. So you can save up to 100 pages without even a PC attached to it. All the software is built in, you put it on a thumb drive, and you can save up to 100 pages. And you can also edit that as well too. The other really neat thing is because you can put a memory stick in there, you can just load on your JPEGs and things of that nature. Again, no need for a separate PC. You're doing annotating, you don't want to hook up a PC, just put it in a thumb drive, boom, there you go. And then from there you can actually send an email if you would like right from the display up to 64 different addresses. So again, when we talk about interactivity, this becomes very key. The other thing, and we showed this at InfoComm, and this was a big hit. A lot of times when you have an interactive board, even if you had a 65-inch or an 80-inch, and if I had one here, everyone from here going forward would be able to see fine. But if you're sitting in the back where Manny is, right, you would have trouble seeing that 65-inch maybe. So with our interactive display, you can actually feed it out with a VGA cable to a projector, a Panasonic projector, of course, but besides that. So now you can have a 65-inch display sitting here, and with no lag at all, I could be showing it through a projector up here as well for the people in the back. So this becomes very key, especially we find out in the house of worship. If you're in a church setting and you have a teaching pastor, a teaching pastor loves to draw and do things like this. But again, it's great for the first 5 rows. But what about the people in the back? Again, they would be able to use our interactive board and feed right into one of our projectors and go forward. So just something very unique that we have with our interactive displays. The other thing is with ours, you have a picture-in-picture mode. So if I just wanted to have 2 displays, again with no lag, and copy exactly what I'm doing on one display. I have one display here and another display over there. I can do a picture-in-picture scenario, and they each copy each other. So again, something that's very quite unique. The other thing that people like to know, the fact that with our boards, the compatibility with such as Crestron and AMX and things of that nature, and they're fully compatible. Okay. 4K. How many people have an interest in 4K? Okay, please, yeah, because we're making 4K, so we need to sell 4K products. 4K, you know, I don't know if you remember, Raj and I tell the story, you know, there was high definition, right? And then we went to 3D. Well, 3D went real fast. And then all of a sudden we heard about 2K, and I think 2K stands for 2 weeks, because 2K seemed to be for 2 weeks, and then all of a sudden 4K really made its entrance in there and to the marketplace. And people have a strong interest in 4K, and for today's purposes, we'll talk about these 2 displays. We will have an 84 and a 98-inch true 4K display that will be shipping this December. So a lot of different applications. Besides pretty pictures, we hear a lot about in the medical field where detail becomes very, very important. So I just wanted to make sure you were aware of those, and they were shipping this December. At InfoComm, one of the neatest things we did is we actually, to separate ourselves from competition, and this is one of the neatest displays that was at InfoComm, we had a huge metal ball, and it was about that big, and it was solid, and it was swung up on the ceiling, and at will, someone could hit a button, and it would go flying through and smack into the 4K display. And then we did graphics to show that the screen was cracking. But of course, the screen survived. And people were very impressed by that, because one of the challenges when you especially have a 98-inch display is if someone throws something into it and it cracks, that's kind of expensive to replace. And so this is one of the things we're doing, separating ourselves from the competition. And I got to tell you, that night, me and my colleagues were like, that's really an impressive display. That first day, but we're also saying, is it really going to survive 3 more days? It's like, do we have a backup? And especially when you let people do it at will. So all of a sudden, when people see it, everyone wants to hit the button. But so for 3 days solid, during 8 hours during the show, nonstop, and the display survived very nicely. So let's talk a little bit about projectors, because how many of you know that Panasonic bought out Sanyo? How many of you know that? Yeah, Panasonic bought out Sanyo. We didn't buy them because of their projectors, quite frankly. We bought them because of their battery technology is what we were really interested in. And if you saw a recent announcement, Tesla is actually, the sports car, their battery car is all going to be run by Panasonic batteries at a manufacturing plant outside of Las Vegas. Raj and I are hoping our company cars will be Teslas, but I don't think so. I don't think that'll happen. But there's a lot of neat things that separate Panasonic projectors from competition, and you can see them listed here, and I want to talk about some of those as I go through the presentation. But one of the things customers tell us why they like our projectors, just like the reason why they like our cameras, is actually this last one, the Hollywood tuning of our products. We're the only really manufacturer, maybe besides one other, that makes cameras for Hollywood production. We understand that market. We understand color symmetry. We understand film looks. And so we have the technology and the knowledge, along with Hollywood and their input, to reproduce colors that other people aren't doing, to achieve looks that are very pleasing and replicable of film. So that's something that really separates us apart from most other manufacturers. The other thing is this ultra short throw lens. One of the reasons why we use one of the particular projectors we do out in our booth is we also have an ultra short throw lens. And this is a perfect example. If I'm in a conference room or in a teaching room, that's why I don't stand up there, although I should because I'm short, but I like to move around a little bit. And one of the things with projectors is if you teach and you talk and you present, you cut across your display. And what happens is you get these awful, the shadows. And that's not very pleasing. But with an ultra short throw lens, if you were in our booth, I could literally take our projector with the ultra short throw lens and have it this close and get this size of a screen. So that changes the dynamics of what you can do. And so we have one for our one-chip projector. And just like I was trying to illustrate when I went up on stage there, I can be only 2.5 feet from the screen. So rather than have a projector here that maybe in your conference room you don't like, it's maybe a little loud, it may get in the way, I can either put it on the floor that close, I can put it on the ceiling that close. But what we are finding, most people say, I only need 2.5 feet. Well, you know what? I have 2.5 feet behind the screen here. And so with that ultra short throw lens, I can actually just take this and move it behind the screen and no one even has to look at that. So that's something we're doing that we've won engineering Emmys for that no one else is doing. And at InfoComm this year, we showed it on our 3-chip projectors being edge blended together. So it was really quite eye-catching, and we're finding a lot of different applications for that. We're seeing for retail store displays. We're actually putting them in where the train comes in, and they're edge blending them together in a very small space. They're using our we call our PTZ 870 with ultra short throw lenses. Doing a lot of different creative things there, and actually here's kind of a display that we're using in one of the museums using ultra short throw lenses. Again, all the projectors can go right behind it, only 2.5 feet. And this leads me into the projector that we have in our booth. It's what we call a PT-RZ670. This has got a Best in Show at InfoComm. It's won of a lot of awards, and the reason why that is because it's lampless. How many of you have projectors in your facilities, just out of curiosity? How many times do you have to change bulbs and lamps and filters and things of that nature? It becomes, one, an expense, and two, a hassle. And so with our laser projectors, they are operated by a diode, not a lamp. There are no fans and there's no filters. And so this becomes a huge savings. The cost of ownership for that projector is really not an issue anymore. At 20,000 hours, so if it's on 8 hours a day, if you want to check the math with me, you can have this projector for 7 or 8 years and never have to touch it. So often we walk into facilities and they say, you know what, it's not only a hassle buying the lamps and keeping them in stock. The other hassle is I have to hire someone to bring a lift in and pay for that and get someone up there to do that. And so again, a very big cost savings feature. The other thing is, and this is not my projector, so I won't do it, but often if you go into a conference room, how many of you have been called into a meeting real quick? It happens all the time. I walk into a facility, I got to do a presentation, and, let's hurry up and go. Well, they turn on the projector, and, we wait 10 minutes for it to come to full light. With a laser projector, what's really nice about it is I can turn it on and off, on and off, on and off, all day long, and there's no lamp to blow rather. It'll keep working. It doesn't matter whatsoever. So very important, especially for museums and things of that nature. And you can see the different applications that it's being used for. We're going to have 4 in this series. There's a UXGA and a XGA model, depending on the particular application. But again, what's really nice about this laser projector is not only don't I have to change the bulb, but I can put it in any position whatsoever. At InfoComm, we had it on a 360-degree arm moving constantly with the picture staying the same. And so a lot of times in applications, they'll say, well, there's a pole there. I want to put the projector on its side a little bit angled. You can't do that with lamp projectors, but you can with the lampless projectors. The other neat thing that they've done on here with the lampless projector is what they call a detail clarity processor. As we get better and better content, detail becomes more and more important. And so with the detail processor, one of the things it does is it looks at all the different bands and the different contrasts and gives clarity to that. And so when we do comparisons and things of that nature, and hair is actually a very good example, because otherwise, usually hair in projected displays becomes fuzzy and it doesn't look very detailed or clear. And so with the detail processor, we handle that. The other thing is the system daylight view. The reason why I bring this up is I'll talk about churches or even classrooms. They'll have a projector and they'll say, well, it's not very bright, so I lower the lights so they can see the image a lot better, because when you turn on the lights brighter, it kind of washes out the picture. And a lot of times, especially in churches, they say, you know what, or even presenters, and no one's fallen asleep here yet, so that's good so far. But when the lights go down, right, studies have been done, they're not as engaged because it's dark in the audience. And so they do fall asleep, and they're not as intrigued. So the speaker or the organization says, well, I want the lights up so my audience, I can see my audience and they don't hear yawning. Great. So don't fall asleep on me. So what happens is they turn on the lights. Well, it gets too bright, the projector's not very bright, and the picture looks washed out. So daylight view that we have is something that whether it's very bright, I can still get a very detailed and very rich color. And that's something that we love to show our projectors in different lighting conditions. The medical community is very important to us. They use projection a lot to look at x-rays, and it has a DICOM simulation mode to do that, and we use what we call Part 14. If you're a video file person, you look at Rec 709, and Rec 709 is essentially a color space. I want to hit certain colors in the color space, and what Hollywood likes is Rec 709. So this projector is actually able to reproduce and grab the colors from Rec 709. Very few projector companies can actually make that claim. The other thing, just like I was mentioning with the video walls, how it's very key that they be equally calibrated. Same thing if you're doing edge blending with projectors. And the features that are built into the laser projectors with geometric correction and those type of things ensures that if we're doing edge blending, each of them will match perfectly. Digital link, for those that didn't sit in the other seminars, yeah, you give the thumbs up because I'm sure you can appreciate the fact that a lot of times you have all different type of signals going in, right? You walk in a facility, sometimes it's HDMI, sometimes it's VGA, sometimes it's composite, and you have all these cabling going to a projector. With Cat5, I can take all those signals plus control and go into a projector and it control everything. So this has really revolutionized the industry. It's on our laser projector that you saw there, and as you saw, are many different displays. So let's talk about Pro Video. I'm going to go through this a little bit quick because there's a reason why I brought Raj here, but I want to overview something. Panasonic, as you know, we are a broadcast provider for high-end production at all different levels. But what's very popular is our integrated pan and tilts. They seem to be, I was in a TV studio not that long ago, and where they used to have $150,000 cameras, they were now using a $10,000 camera in Wilmington, North Carolina, for their studio camera. And so I just want to bring them to your attention just really quick, because often when you talk about a camera that size, and we have this in our booth, they think there's a huge compromise. And let me just talk about one or two features that make it unique. You can see some of them highlighted there, but this is on our other cameras as well. There's a feature called DRS, and that stands for dynamic range stretch. And how many of you watched video, and this is where my good friend Kent comes in, and we just met, so we've never worked together, but it's a very good example, and I obviously am a good example too. But if you ever watch TV, and you'll see that, usually in news, and you'll see the bright lights on them, and you get this shine. Some of us have extra real estate here, and so you get this glare, and often it happens underneath the cheek as well. And so if you're a camera operator, you adjust what they call the iris. And so the iris makes it go, not let as much light in. Well, when you do that, because you're trying to compensate for here, right, what happens is the background goes dark, and it doesn't become a very attractive picture. So what DRS does, can I use you as an example? You can sit right there. So what happens is in this setting, if there was lights there, you can see the hot spot right here, right? If you're just looking, pretend you're looking through a camera. What DRS does is take a sample of each line on each frame. And what it does is it quiets that hot area down without affecting the back from going dark. And so if Kent was to move and walk and we're, filming him, you would think, well, the lighting's going to change. If he walked over here, and I won't do this to you, but, if you walked here, that brightness would be harder here, right? Because you're right under light. DRS will follow him at each point and quiet that down. We used to have that on our $100,000 cameras. Now we have it on a $10,000 camera. So that's something that you want to use in the right environment and those type of things. The other thing is 12-axis color correction. And what 12 color axis correction is, we all have our maybe favorite sports team or favorite logo. Maybe you work for a company, and I call this the Coca-Cola feature. And I was speaking at Coca-Cola, and I told them I drop their name all the time when I talk about this particular feature. But in Coca-Cola, red is religion, right? That their color red. They were telling me, I walked into their conference room, their CEO walked in a brand new multi-million-dollar conference room, and they didn't use the right color red. And he just looked at it and said, redo it. And the same thing happens if you shoot a commercial for Coca-Cola or you shoot your logo. That red's got to be signed off by Coca-Cola. Well, how do you tweak just red without all the other colors being affected? Because typically in video, if I'm going to adjust red, now my blues are going to be impacted, my greens are going to be impacted. 12-pole color correction, try to say that 10 times fast. I can adjust just that color without it impacting any others. And so that's on, again, a $10,000 camera and on my other cameras as well. So that's just something very unique I want to bring to your attention. This is another integrated pan and tilt that is a single MOS camera that's doing very well for us, that actually has IP live streaming coming back for monitoring and things of that nature. So very unique feature of that particular camera. And then we have the little HE2. If you have time, real quick, look at our booth. It's the size of a Coke can. And it's an integrated pan and tilt, no moving parts. And we can actually tie all those products together. If you're in a facility, and VIcom and I would love if you had one of our studio cameras, one of our HE120s, one of our HPX 270s, and other pan and tilts, and with one controller, be able to paint each of those different products. We can do that because all of our factories now are working together. So that's very, very strong, because in a lot of facilities, you may have a couple of those, and you may have one of these handhelds. Well, you don't want to have two different controllers to paint it. The operators don't like that. You can use just one. So I want to respect your time, but I also want to talk as a way of closing about the PX270 camera. You can see the specs up there. I don't want to focus on the specs right now. What I want to focus on, Raj, if you got a moment to come up here. What makes this camera unique and what you're seeing in the industry is wireless capability. And so, Raj, because I'm not that smart, why don't you tell them what you've been doing? That's the PX270 camera right there.
Yeah, what I'm trying to show here is there's a web browser built in all of them, not just this one. And you can access that web browsers with just Wi-Fi's. And this is what the web browser is. I just connected Wi-Fi to it. I open up the web page. So literally, I can do it on your iPhone. I can do it on your iPad. I just type in the address, web address of the camera, and I have this page. And what this does for the cameraman is, if I'm a single cameraman, I put the camera there, I can start recording, and camera will start recording. Right now, you can pan the camera if you want. So you can actually start talking, you're doing your story by yourself, and then if you don't have a cameraman, like Jim Jensen, and as you can see, the red tele lights on the top is on, correct? I can stop, and the tele light stops. I can start again, and tele light starts, and I can stop. It's a simple remote control, right? No big deal. But if you're a single person who shoots and who speaks in front of the mic, it's a huge deal. You can do it on your iPhone, because it's the same web page that opens up here. So once it's done that, if you update it, and if you open that page, you can actually view that clip right on your web browsers. And why this is important, because if you're working with reporters, now cameraman is shooting, and I can show that pictures right on web browsers, without he's affecting, hey, let me see the pictures. I don't need to show him. I can actually report that picture, show that pictures right up about here on iPads. One guy said, "Are you gonna drop this?" $8,000. But it's made so that it's sticky. And it's stuffed bed, so I can drop it.
So those are some of the products we want to kind of go over, today for you. We really appreciate your time and attention. And again, my hat's off to VIcom for, hosting really an awesome event. I see Dennis in the back, the president of VIcom. So Dennis, thank you from Panasonic to you. It's really been a privilege to be a part of it, to talk about our technology. I know the event closed at 3, but Raj and I will take any questions that you have. So thank you.